Hello everyone, and today we're taking a look at Call of Duty 2 as part of Call of Duty's 20th anniversary in 2023. We're going to try and get through all of the Call of Duty games. Have fell a little bit behind with them. We did COD 1 in January. We're doing COD 2. Hopefully this will get out before March. Hopefully so, by the end of February. But anyway, let's go and take a look at Call of Duty 2. Call of Duty 2 was, of course, the direct sequel to Call of Duty, which was released again in 2003. This was released in 2005 for the PC, and it was also a launch title for the Xbox 360. Again, it came out at quite an interesting time in 2005. The Xbox 360 had just launched. We say the direct sequel to the original Call of Duty because there were quite a few spin-offs for the console. There was Call of Duty Finest Hour, which I think was made by Grey Matter Studios. And there was also Call of Duty 2 Big Red One, which was again made by Treyarch for the 6th generation console, so GameCube, PS2, and the OG Xbox. But Call of Duty 2, without any subtitles after it, was the one developed by Infinity Ward. This was the true sequel to Call of Duty 1, and again, it came out for the then next-gen Xbox 360. Ran quite well on the Xbox 360, and it was probably one of the best multiplayer games, certainly, for the 360. The 360 launch, it wasn't great. Let's be honest. We had Perfect Dark, which was pretty mediocre, and the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion was cancelled or delayed until 2006. So Call of Duty 2 was the best launch title, certainly in terms of as a multiplayer shooter. You only had Perfect Dark Zero was your only other choice of multiplayer shooter. You did have Time Splitters 3 and you did have Battlefront 2 at the time, but yeah, they were last gen games. So we had Call of Duty 2, which had an amazing campaign, I gotta say. And again, if you want to run this game, again, you can pick it up on the Xbox 360. Play it and put it in your Xbox 360 and it'll play fine. It's also backwards compatible. Back compatible with the Xbox One and Xbox Series consoles. You can buy it digitally on the Xbox Store. Or if you've got an Xbox Series X, then you can put the disc in. Obviously, you can't put the disc into your Series S because it doesn't have a disc drive. But yeah, you can fully backwards compatible. There's no enhancements, I will say. No enhancements. Xbox One X enhancements, so no 4K support. It does target 60 FPS, and it did struggle to hit 60 FPS consistently on the Xbox 360. Luckily, the extra power of the Xbox One and Xbox Series consoles means it has no trouble hitting 60 FPS. And the multiplayer is still there as well if you want that. It still has Xbox Live capabilities if you want to go in and do that. Again, you can play the campaign. The PC version is fine. I've got to say, this is the PC version. All the footage that you're looking at is the PC version. Does require a custom resolution, but again, these are fairly simple to get right on the PC. It's a Quake engine game, so if you know how to adjust resolutions in the Quake engine, it's just the same config file that you edit. If you're used to things like Doom 3 or Call of Duty 1 or Quake 4 or Medal of Honor Allied Assault, it's literally the same file that you edit in all those games. It's a modified version of the Quake engine, but it still is at its core the Quake engine that it's running. Same engine as the original ran. So in terms of gameplay, Call of Duty 2 brought two major innovations to the Call of Duty franchise. The first one being that it was described as the first healthless shooter. That's how Infinity Ward described it. There was no health bar and there was no health pickups. This was the first game in the series that introduced the regenerating health, and every other COD after this had the same regenerating health feature. But this is where it was first featured, because the original Call of Duty you did have a health bar and you had health pickups. I don't know it being the first healthless shooter, because Halo 2 had no health. I mean, it did have an energy shield, and it was shown on screen, your energy shield. I guess it was the first one that didn't have a health bar on the screen. But it wasn't really the first healthless shooter. But again, it did communicate your low health by turning the screen red, and the bloodier the screen got, basically, the less health that you had. But yeah, that's how they communicated to you that you had low health. You didn't have to run around and get health pickups. And this is the way the franchise stayed for the rest of it. But this was the first game. The other big thing that it added to the franchise was the use of smoke grenades. Smoke grenades were not only a big graphical feature in the game. Again, you had the NVIDIA fog that was enabled, which would again impact the smoke grenades. It did impact performance, particularly on the Xbox 360 if you're playing on real hardware. Again, playing on the later Xboxes doesn't exhibit this issue. But the smoke effects, you could throw smoke grenades. This was required, not only a visual effect, but it was required, particularly during the Soviet campaign. When you were in Stalingrad, you had to run up to the tanks, and you had to you had to attach the sticky bombs to blow them up. You didn't have any RPGs to shoot at the tanks. You had to use the sticky bombs. So you would throw the smoke grenade at it, and that way the tank couldn't see you. Again, it would take a while to fog up the tank, and you could use it for also flanking machine gun position, MG42 positions as well. You could use it for them. And it was interesting. It added a different tactical aspect to the game. They also had the AI. The battle chatter was introduced or upgraded in Call of Duty 2. Again, the AI, your comrades and the enemies would call out different things. They would call out German troops by the old car or something like that, or German troops up on the left. And that was quite an innovative thing. They would dynamically call out. And again, the AI was there to, it would dynamically react to what you did. So how you positioned yourself meant that encounters would never really play out the same twice. And again, some of the tanks were mobile, and again, they would actually try and get away from you if you threw a smoke grenade at them. You could box them into a corner if you wanted to there. But it did add a few new strategic elements again. It's pretty interesting. The campaign has a new setting of North Africa, the British campaign. Again, you've got the 3 campaigns like you had in Call of Duty 1. You've got the Soviet campaign. The game starts this time with the Soviet campaign, which is set in Stalingrad for the whole duration. There's no Berlin like you did in COD 1. COD 1 started out with the Soviet campaign in Stalingrad. I think it moved to Warsaw, the liberation of Warsaw in Poland, and then it ended with you storming the Reichstag, and you put the hammer and sickle, the Soviet flag, above the Reichstag. And that's how the original Call of Duty ended in terms of the Soviet campaign. So you've got the 3 campaigns here again. You've got the Soviet Union, the British. The British one now is set in North Africa. Now that is the new setting. So you've got the Battle of El Alamein in Egypt. So you're fighting Rommel's Africa Corps as the British. And the American campaign is set on D-Day. So you are storming. I can't remember what the beach is you're storming. It's the one with the cliff at it. I can't remember. There was quite a few beach names. But you're playing as the Americans, and you're storming on D-Day. So you're storming the beaches of Normandy, we'll say. I don't know, I can't remember what the code name was. There was like Juno, Sword, Gold. I can't remember off the top of my head. But the American campaign is pretty interesting. The British campaign, again, set in Africa. You've got a tank mission as well, where you play as a tank driver. I thought it was one of the least. There was vehicle sections in the original COD. This one's again set in North Africa. But that's pretty interesting. So it introduces, you've got obviously the desert setting there, and you've got, again, the Battle of El Alamein was a famous battle the British Army took part in World War II there. So you've got that, and again, the Soviet missions, again, it's just Stalingrad again. It's like, we've got one setting for the Soviets, and that's Stalingrad. At least the original COD had, a few different settings there, at least with you. That's where the original COD ended, with you storming the Reichstag in Berlin, and that was the end of the war. So it ended at the end of World War II. This one, it is kind of, in terms of the settings, it's a you're playing as different characters. You still got some reoccurring characters like Captain Price, who died in the first Call of Duty, is back in this, but the first Call of Duty, the mission where he died was set in 1945, whereas the Battle of El Alamein was 1943, so it's set in 1943. So at least it makes sense continuity-wise that Captain Price is alive. I think Captain Price does die in this as well, or his death is at least implied in it. So you've got that. I'll give you a few reoccurring characters. But yeah, COD 2 is actually one of my favorites in the series. I still come back to this, and I still think it's one of the best in the series. I like the mission design again. I kind of like the health meter. It's probably my favorite World War II Call of Duty, certainly. And I remember playing this. I never got an Xbox 360 at launch. I had to wait a few weeks to get one. But I ended up filling that time in 2005 by playing COD on the PC at the time. And it ran okay. It runs okay on the modern PC, I should point out. But it ran okay on my Radeon X800 Pro at the time. And it was always a decent game to run. But yeah, this was always one of my favorites in terms of the campaign. Again, I liked the North African campaign with the British, and I liked Stalingrad, obviously, with the Soviets. And you got a different perspective on D-Day, as you were playing as one of the troops landing, in the D-Day landings this time, rather than a paratrooper in the original Call of Duty. So I kind of like the fact that it kind of runs parallel, and in some cases it's a prequel to the original COD. It's still set in World War II, but yeah, Call of Duty 2 was definitely my favorite in the series. It does hold up well. The gameplay is pretty good. I like the addition of the smoke grenades. I thought they added an interesting strategic element. You had to wait for the smoke to build up in real time. It did cause issues with some PCs because it was an integral part of the game design, and there was a bit of issues getting it running the smoke effects. Again, the 360 had issues with it, but I something I really liked, and I still like this game. I still come back to it, and I still play it. It's definitely worth checking out if you're a fan of Call of Duty. The multiplayer, again, it was excellent at the time. It was the best. So it kind of lucked into that being the best multiplayer game on the Xbox 360 at the time of launch, because again, there was nothing else really for multiplayer. Really, there was Cameo, which was a single player game. There was what was it called? There was Condemned Criminal Origins. That was another single player game. There was Perfect Dark Zero, which was awful, the multiplayer. You just strafed around each other for about 20 minutes to shoot each other. So yeah, COD 2 was definitely the best game. Everybody bought Peter Jackson's King Kong, I remember, just for the easy achievements at the time. So that was the other Xbox 360 launch title. So it kind of lucked into that, and by the time Call of Duty 3 came out, it had actually established itself. But we will take a look at the interesting and unique Call of Duty 3. That will be our next review. Again, we'll check that out next time. So anyway, that is all for this video. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you again soon, and goodbye.